Hi everyone, Darren Hunter here with the Win Your Worth podcast. Today we've got a very special guest, Dean Yeo, all the way from Queensland, based in Brisbane. Welcome, Dean.
Howdy.
So Dean is a rent roll broker. All right, he's the guy that if you want to sell your rent roll, he's the guy that you call. Certainly, Dean looks after Queensland, but rent roll brokers have a lot of experience around when it comes to selling rent rolls, but particularly around their value, all right, and how well any potential rent roll purchaser will look at it, their attraction to it, their detraction from it as well. But what we're going to talk about today is a lot of the major factors that can decrease the sale price, all right, of a rent roll. And so, Dean, how many years experience have you had with selling rent rolls in Queensland?
About 10 years.
Okay, and you've been with some big firms there as well. So how many rent rolls have you brokered in your career?
Hundreds, more than a couple hundred.
Okay, and what would be the size? What would be the smaller size and the biggest size that you've brokered?
Probably 15 properties, and then the largest 800, 900.
Okay, so let's just talk about the selling price of a rent roll, and basically how is a selling price. You talked to me before about AAMI. Let's just start with that. That's a base, and we talk about the multiply. What's AAMI mean?
Sure. AAMI is average annual management income. So how much money are you making per property per year? So that's just the management fee. And that's the reason that we talk about that, is because that's how a valuer puts a value on what a rent roll is worth. So we do a weekly rent times the management fee, ex GST, then we divide that by 7 and times it by 365. And that gives us, say, $1,800, $2,000. That's what per property you make per year out of the management fee. The extra fees is a bonus, because then that management fee, let's say it was $2,000, and let's say you got 100 properties. So that's $200,000 per year in your management fee. And then that's times the multiple when you go to sell it or when you go to buy it. So a multiple of 3. So there's $200,000 of income. You'd buy that for $600,000.
Okay, so who sets the multiplier?
The seller. No,
it's the demand, isn't it? It's the market demand, isn't it?
The market does,
Yeah.
but there's very a little, if anything, emotional about it. It's purely based around what is the valuer going to look at it? Because let's say, for argument's sake, it's say 100 properties would cost you $500,000, 200 properties would cost you $1 million. If it's 200 properties, it's $1 million. A bank will then lend 60% on that, and they'll come up with 40%, but they're going to go out to a bank and borrow $600,000 for that. And hence it needs to stack up that it's valued around what it is that they're buying it at. In this, there's no emotion because it's got an ocean view, because it's north facing. There's none of those things. It's purely around the numbers.
Yeah. Now, you also said before, from the management fee and other fees, that typically in Queensland, for example, you see what are typically the percentage of fees over and above the management fee that you see in Queensland?
What are the extra fees, or what is, like, as
the
in
percentage?
extra?
I think you mentioned the extras.
Ideal is 20%. So if
Yep.
they brought in $200,000 a year in management fee, we would ideally like to see another $40,000 on top of that in extra fees.
Yeah. So also, and this is relating to the chat that we've had before, Dean, you've obviously worked with a lot of businesses that really don't have many fees over and above the management fee. They've been really low on those, or discounted, or stripped them out, or whatever. But then in the same city, you would have come across rent rolls that had quality add-on fees, a quality leasing fee, lease renewal fee, maybe routine inspection fee, marketing fees, all of that in the same city.
Yep.
So what
or the same suburb, the
same suburb. What's the difference then? Because if you go to that agent, that cheap agent, and say you could be charging this, and this, where the other agent is, what's the big difference that you see why one agent hasn't done it as opposed to the one that has?
Their education, their confidence, their ability to hold their fee, to back up, to be able to answer questions. Often it may end up being someone, there's a BDM on the front line that doesn't have a whole lot of worldly experience, and it's going out and just caves in with any questions that a landlord comes back, and then just, yeah, signs it up at whatever they can get. So they don't have the gumption to step up.
So these are very much mindset things and training issues, not market things. The actual
Correct.
resistance isn't
Absolutely.
coming from the client saying you can't charge this. These are factors like not being able to deal with fee objections, or actually believing that they can't get those fees when that's not the truth.
Absolutely.
And I guess I'm just giving a quick plug. If you haven't got my book, The PM Fee Script Secrets, I go through 50 effective responses for any fee objection that you can think of. Get the book here, so you're never falling into the trap or the pitfall that you can't give a quality response with confidence when you get any fee objection thrown at you. Look, I've paid for the book. All you have to do is pay for shipping. Just go to stopdiscountingfees.com. That's stopdiscountingfees.com. Get your book. Next question, Dean. Let's just rattle these off, because we really want to look at the factors that decrease the sale price, all right, that impact the sale price when it comes to selling a rent roll. Now, spread of properties. You know, there are some agency that just as long as the property fits within a metropolitan area, it's business. Or you hear of, well, you know, okay, we've got properties 45 minutes drive away, but that's where the property manager lives. And just, I hear ridiculous stuff like that. I even say, don't drive anything more than 30 minutes in peak hour. But let's just put it over to you. How does the spread of properties affect the sale price of the rent roll?
I'm pricing up one right at the moment. It's 167 properties, and it's in 76 suburbs. It's
76 suburbs. That sounds like the size of a city.
Oh, well, it is. It is across Brisbane from that
What's
sense.
the reason then why that they feel that they needed to have properties spread across 76 suburbs? What was their reason? They probably
I don't think they had a good reason. They had some excuses, but they just, and in fairness to that, when any of us are starting a business, we go where we sniff it out and we just grab what we can.
Where the money is.
Spreads.
Show me the money.
Yeah, it spreads from here to here to here. And it's usually not until, if I'm selling something and somebody's been around and they're local and they've been probably there 20 years or more, most of the time their rent roll will be close to where they are, because they've, for better words, purged, sacked, disencouraged, you know, those that are further away over a period of time and just got more in their core area. That usually comes with time, or it comes with, they might have started the business as another time, and this time they go, no, we're not going to go that far out. We're just going to say no to it. But very few in a small rent roll do they ever say no. And hence the poor buggers are just run off their feet, you know, that they haven't got a whole lot of staff. They haven't got a whole lot of systems, and they're running around trying to do everything themselves, and they're not charging a whole lot for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's move on. And I'm going to ask you another question that you're not aware is coming. All right. But many years ago, I typically still have the opinion, and my opinion is Queensland's the worst when it comes to additional fees. All right. When I compare it to other states and New Zealand as well, Brisbane and Queensland is the worst, which means the property managers have to manage more. They can't be paid a high level, which puts all sorts of pressure on the business. But marketing fees. So this is where we charge an owner for listing our property on, you know, any of the big marketing portals that charge money. Up till now, Queensland has really been the only place where I've seen agents not charging it. And a few years ago, I would probably hazard to say that less than 50% of agents in Queensland don't charge in property management a vendor a marketing fee, or a landlord a marketing fee. What's your take now on how many businesses do you see still not charging a marketing fee in Queensland? What's your experience on that?
I'd have to take a stab in the dark because it comes in under extras in there, and it's usually a straight in and out from that sense. So it's not like they're making any money on it. They're just trying to recover their costs. From a property management side of things, I know, as an example, realestate.com did a push towards, encouraging people to even upsize what they're doing on the rental side. But early days, it used to be, you used to just get it as part of what your subscription was years ago, and then it started being charged. So there was a lag as far as, well, you should be charging at least to cover what it is your cost, because it's costing you. But I would say probably your 50% is probably fairly on the money from that sense, which is a real shame. I feel that Queensland's better with their management fee than, say, Melbourne or Sydney, especially Sydney, but Sydney's rent is higher, so that's how they sort of cover that. But part of their extras is they could do some more work on that.
Yeah. And it's really, I only see that in Queensland. It's actually a Queensland thing, where any other state, they always have charging a marketing fee. And I just want to add in, if you're not using Box Brownie for your property marketing photos, you need to. Go and download on your iPhone, Snap. That's 3 Snap app. It's so easy to be charging for marketing fees in Queensland. If you're not, you're welcome to chat to me on how to do that. But you need to make sure your marketing looks amazing on your property photos, whether it's a virtual tour or enhanced photos or digital staging or anything like that. It's so easy to earn $100, $200, $300, $400 on your marketing fees. And check out Box Brownie, because they can make that magic happen. Now, here is the deal, is that 90% of the reason why a tenant will click on one listing and ignore another, the 90% decision is based visually on what they see with the pictures. All righty.
Absolutely.
So check out Box Brownie. Now, moving on. All right, multiple property owners. That's where an owner comes in. He's got 10 properties, he's got 12 properties, he's got 20 properties. He demands a discount. The agent says, yes, please, I need the growth, I need the roofs, I need the front doors. And they put that. Tell us about, what you've seen when it comes to the sale of a rent roll around an agent that has a lot of multiple property owners, and how does it detract? Does it reduce the price? Does it cause problems with the purchaser? Tell us about that.
Well, of course it does, because it increases the risk. So if we look about each individual property, so you're a buyer of a rent roll, each individual property will probably cost you, say, $5,000. If you've got one owner that has 5 of those properties, that's then going to cost you $25,000 for one landlord. So if that one landlord leaves, instead of just leaving and it's 5, it's 25,000. So hence that risk factor goes up. It's fantastic to take them on, but it's on the other end, they're seen as a higher risk. And there's one of two things that happen. They'll either decrease the multiple that they'll offer you for those ones with, say, 5 or more, or they'll do that and they'll ask for a longer retention. And a retention, instead of, say, is 20% of the sale price of the overall sale price for 3 months, they might ask for it for 4 months or 6 months. And I've had that at the moment with someone that has 8 properties, that they've increased it to 4 months and they've given it a slightly less multiple in the purchase price.
Yeah, and that makes sense, because the more multiple property owners you've taken on, the more of a risk it is to the purchaser.
Absolutely.
Because one owner can take a crap load of business and income out the door, even if they just don't like you. So,
yep.
Again, it's a real issue. And look, if you understand my opinion out there, everyone, I honestly can't give you any good reason to have multiple property owners. I don't think there is one. I think there's a lot of bad reasons to take them on board, but again, that's my opinion. Let's move on. Lower demographic, having too many properties in crap areas. Let's not pull any punches. I make a very famous saying: if a good tenant doesn't want to rent it, Why do you want to manage it? So good tenants don't want to live in those properties because of the lower demographics, they're rough areas, lower socio, all of that sort of thing. Having too many of those sort of properties. Over to you, Dean. What's your comment on those and how does it affect a sale price?
Well, it can affect the sale price because there's more work from that sense, because you got a lower income. You have a lower rent. So down the track per property, you might only be making $1,500 instead of $2,000, but it'll take just as much time to manage that successfully as a $2,000 property.
If I say it was actually going to be more, it could be double.
I was being conservative.
Yeah, that because of the social issues that come with it. And also we find the lower the rent, the more demographics that go, the more chance you'll be chasing that rent. Because we do find that low demographic tenants tend to have other priorities for their rent money, which aren't necessarily healthy for them. And that's why that doesn't matter how low the rent goes, you've got more of a chance of the rent not actually being paid or more chasing involved and putting out fires. So yeah, interesting comment. But so, if you've got, have you sold rent rolls that were predominantly in lower demographic areas, and what were some of the issues?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably more in QCAT and, sort of some of the issues as far as taking it through small claim and all sorts of those sort of things happen probably a bit more in those lower economic areas.
Tribunal a lot more, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
earning a lot less.
But majority of the buyers of them are in that area as well. So it's not like someone's coming from outside. So they also, I've got someone in, like if we talked of, say, Adelaide out at Elizabeth, and another agency in Elizabeth saying, oh, I see where you've got those. They're in shit areas. And I'm like, well, hang on. You're talking about your own. He goes, yeah, but there's different suburbs within ours that are worse than others. And I'm like, well,
can I just say that at the moment, I live 5 minutes walk from Elizabeth. I'm in the northern suburbs. And
I'm not,
the suburb I'm living in is the best out of all of them. So yeah, there are really good suburbs, and there are suburbs right next to each other that you would be very careful in, and I'm 100% on board with what you're saying. And there are rent rolls within there that will take them on, but they are tempered.
Yeah.
Like glass.
And those that are in the area know about the area and know about those particular properties. So majority of time when you send a list of what it is and it's just the suburb, we'll talk about it and they'll get a feel for that, anyway. So there's no real surprises from it, but you're not going to get someone that's out at Ross Trevor that's going to look at Elizabeth as an example in Adelaide terms.
No, that's it. All right, moving on. Okay, now here's an interesting one. It's called the rogue factor. Now I'll just explain that to everyone because Dean prompted me on it before. When I used to work in the Riverland of South Australia way back when, 20 years ago, we had an agent that everybody hated. If I had a tenant that was being evicted, I would quietly call my competitors and say, look out for such and such, but I'd never call this agent because they had outed themselves out of the agent community so much. If we had a tenant that came to apply with a rental property with us, that we're currently renting with that other agent, we knew if we called them for a reference, the agent would not return our calls, would refuse to speak to us. And they were the same with everyone else in town, that no one got along with them. You get abused by them. And so there was a bad relationship between that rogue agent and everyone else who seemed to get along politely with each other. So the rogue factor, Dean, you actually told me that can be an issue. Tell me about that.
Well, the rogue factor, as far as the agency owner, is going to be in a community, and others in the community, i.e. other agency owners, could be his best asset as far as to buy his rent roll. But if he has done conjunctions or exactly what you're just saying, called up for another reference of somebody else, usually they've had dealings with each other. If there isn't a trust factor there, then when they go to sell the rent roll, sometimes people won't even look at it based around, oh, you know, I reckon it's so-and-so that owns it, and I wouldn't touch that with a barge pole.
So I guess it's a little bit like you and all the other rent roll business owners in that marketplace, they're all your potential buyers of the rent roll. It's like everybody sitting in a spa, don't crap in it, right?
Exactly right.
I know, it's just, I'm sorry, everybody.
I don't know about
I've put
crap
that
in it, but don't
awful.
wee in it. Yeah, it's like kids in a pool.
Well,
Don't wee in it.
sometimes that's not detected, right? But what I'm going to say is, everybody, I think that's a terrible illustration, making a good point. That you don't upset your rivals, all right, in an unnecessary way.
I put it, it's, like State of Origin, which is a football thing on, they'll go out, they'll rip each other apart on the field and then finish the game, and they'll go off and have a beer with each other and have a good chat, because you can be competitive, but you don't have to be an asshole, like that side of it, because there's enough tension, pressure, emotion, all that sort of stuff in residential real estate. You don't need from agent to agent to add to that. Hey, how do we work this out? How do we, get the best for our own customers, clients? So.
And look, I just want to invite everybody out there. If you want to get better fees with your rent roll, you want to be able to get quality properties on board. I'm just running the Win Your Worth Academy at the moment. And you can join that. Just go to igtmembership.com, or simply get in contact with me. If you want to get better fees, just book straight in my diary. Go to getbetterfees.com. That puts you straight into my diary. Now, Dean, what's the easiest and best way? If people want to connect with you, what's the best way to connect?
Easiest, just a mobile, 0499 902 980, or check me out across social. I post out every day across social as raw and real videos that are 60 to 90 seconds. There is actually a newsletter that goes out. There's a couple thousand that are on that, which you can go to deanyeo.com and sign up for that. But just check out across social. I'm there to help answer any questions.
Well, you're certainly a big name on social. So just look up Dean Yeo, Y-E-O, Dean Yeo. You'll find Dean. But thank you so much for your comment. Your comments are so invaluable, because from a rent roll broker point of view, it's really, because at the end of the day, it's very clear you don't want to throw mud in your own rainwater tank by taking on anything and everything. Anything the roof and the front door will do. Please don't have that mindset, because every property that you sign up and bring on board will either help the sale of your rent roll, or it's going to hurt the sale of your rent roll. It's going to do one or the other. So you've got to be very careful. And at some stage, I will be doing the 8 reasons to say no to new business. We've already got that on our BDM Coach podcast series. I will be doing a fresh one and put it on our Win Your Worth podcast series. But I just want to say a big thank you to everybody for joining us on this podcast episode. And thank you so much, Dean, for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right. Take care, everyone. Cheers.